Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to share with you my very much requested DDD deck profile. And DDDs is a very fun deck to play for me. It's my second favorite deck of all time after Vendrids, and I pretty much understand why people like it very much. But before we'll jump right into the video itself and share with you all the awesome thing that I have in mind for it, as well as the different kind of theories that I have depending from the last list, I'm going to remind you that if you want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button to, be subscribed to the channel and see more videos. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comments down below your thoughts, process, and maybe some questions that you have on the list. And of course the combo section as well. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video itself. Alright, so starting things off with the DDD list, we're going to start things first with the Teamndl monsters, which consist of the 3 copies of Oblivion King Ragnarok, 3 copies of Copernicus, 3 copies of Kepler, which is here, and then the 1 additional copy of, Apocalypse. Now this is a pretty standard DDD Teamndl monster lineup. There are some people who have the access for the manga promo Zero King Rage or whatever his called is, the level 10 scale 0, then I would recommend to switch one of the Ragnarok for that, but unfortunately I don't have access for that card, so I decided to go with 3 Ragnarok instead. And 3 Ragnarok is actually not really a bad card. The more and more I played up with it, the more and more better options and combos that are open up for me, which I will show to you, in the end combo section. 2 combos out of the 5 that are really good with this card, so it's really important to actually have this card sometimes at 3, so it's a really good card. Copernicus is a card that I don't really understand why people are just really what I like to call, love to cut this card to 2 and to 1. It's basically 3 copies of each of your monsters in the graveyard, because it's sending your Sero Slimes, your Necro Slimes, your Lamias, your Ghost if you need to the graveyard is an additional copy for those. And sometimes you actually even send a Kepler to search with the Kepler effect to then, be summoned with the, Genghis effect. It'll summon this, and then you get a search, so it's really important. But I don't really understand why people cut this to 2 and to 1. If you want to, you could cut it down, but I think Copernicus is really important. Kepler is your searcher for your Dark Contracts and best starter of the deck, and then Apocalypse is just good for the Link monster Gilgamesh, although some people like to run the 2 because of desires, but I'm going to say this right now because of the additions and things that I made for the extra deck. Opening up with this, or just like banishing this and opening up with this, is not as bad as it used to be. So 1 copy of this is more than enough. I just need the 1 copy of the brick. And one thing I forgot to mention is that in one of the combos I actually use both of the effects of Ragnarok in the same turn, so that's actually kind of cool. But that does it for the Teamndl monsters, and then for the non-Teamndl monsters, same idea again, the same 10 as always in every list. 3 Lamia, 3 Sero Slime, 3 Necro Slime, and then obviously the 1 Ghost. It's pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory. Lamia is your tuner, your main tuner that you're using most of the time, even more than once a turn. You summon another one with the Haki Fibrax because it's a level 1, it's pretty easy to use. Sero Slime is one of your important cards in the deck. In fact, I think 99% of the combos need this card in hand to do them. There are some particular combos that don't need them, which essentially is the same as the 5th combo that I'm going to share with you, but most of the combos need this card in hand. It's a very important card, and basically the heart and soul of the deck. Necro Slime is your fusion summon in the graveyard, and Ghost is the summon that you summon with Crystal and Haki Fibrax, depending on the combo that you're going up with, but only 1 copy is needed. If you don't really have the ability to summon Ghost, it doesn't matter if it gets banished with Desires or something, you're just going to summon the Lamia, and most of the time it's just going to be fine regardless for that. But that does it for the monsters. That's all the monsters that I run. I don't run hand traps because hand traps just doesn't really make sense for this deck anymore. They're kind of cloggy, they don't really do anything. The only one that makes sense is maybe Phantasme, but I felt like Phantasme is just not really high impactful enough, because there is a particular spell that I think are doing the job better for the deck, which we'll talk about it when we'll get to it in the spells. But for the spells right now, we have 3 copies of Gate and the 1 copy of Swamp King. I don't think I need to explain this. This is pretty standard. This is your Searcher. This is your other fusion spell if you have, or you need, for example, Necro Slime, but you don't really have the ability to. You get this to your hand. or if like you already open up with a Gate and a Kepler, sometimes you just grab this because you just need this for a follow-up, or it's just another fusion spell, which is pretty cool. Nothing really much to explain about these. These are pretty simple. Your Searcher and your other fusion spell, which is pretty nice. And then for your other consistency spells, I guess, 3 Allure Darkness, 3 Where Art Thou, double Pot of Desires, and then that's pretty much does it for those. These are the main important cards. Some people actually think that you need to run 3 Desires. Go right ahead and run 3 copies of Desires. I just don't have the spot for it. B, I don't really like 3 Desires regardless. So that's why I decided to only run the 2. I never liked the 3 copies of Desire, so 2 is more than enough for me. Where Art Thou, you have basically Lamia, Kepler, and I believe also and Necroslime, right? That's the last one. These are the cards that you can search with this as long as you open up with like you have a level 1 on the field. So this is additional 3 copies of everything. Now once we'll get the Peri-Carry map or whatever that called, the new map card, I'm definitely going to cut this to 2 and then add 2 of that map and then cut 1 of the other cards, because that is another kind of search card for your Kepler, which is pretty good. And then the other option, which I see a lot of people run sometimes as well, is Jack in the Hand, I think the name for that is. And Jack in the Hand, in my opinion, is not as good as this, because they're never going to give you the Kepler. They're always going to give you, to take the Kepler to their hand, because they know how Kepler is good in your hand, and they're going to give you the ability to choose from the other 2, which not always as good as you might think. So I don't really like Jack in the Hand that much regardless, and I'd rather run 3 copies of Where Art Thou, because I don't really have the spot for 3 search cards for the level 1s, so I'd rather run the one that is consistent and I can grab whatever I need. And then 3 copies of Allure Darkness, everything is dark, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then for the additional cards that I run in the deck, there are 3 cards that I have to proxy, unfortunately, but we're going to get them in the Megatons, and that is the 3 copies of Triple Tactic Talents, the 1 copy of Instant Fusion, and then the 1 copy of Cold by the Grave. Like I said, I do have to proxy the 3 Tactic Talents, but I think 3 Tactic Talents is really good to have in the deck. You can technically cut these and cut another card and run 3 Gammas and the 1 Driver instead, but I feel like 3 Tactic Talents is so much better in this deck, because it's giving you the ability to deal with the hand, like, you are going to get hand traps, let's say, and then you have the ability to take the other hand trap that your opponent mostly is going to have in their hand, or you're going to get to draw 2 cards, which is, regardless if your opponent uses an action or your desires, you're still getting the 2 cards, because this card is just going to be activated and be your Pot of Greed otherwise. So that's kind of cool. And the fact is that this is your way to also deal with Nibiru, because this can take the Nibiru from your opponent's hand and just get rid of it just 100%, so that's why 3 Tactic Talents is pretty good. And it's also have another 3rd effect, which is good if you're going second, so that's also really good about this card. So Triple Tactic Talents I think is really important. If you don't have the money for this card, just wait for the Megatons just like I do and proxy it for now. Or if you just don't want it, just, like I said, run Gamma and cut 1 other card and run Driver with it. But I like this one so much better. And then Instant Fusion and Cold by the Grave kind of supposed to help you support in the same way. Cold by the Grave, you just deal with hand traps, and Instant Fusion is just supposed to summon Millennium Eyes Restrict and hit and eat hand traps. And these 5 cards are just supposed to help you deal with hand traps, which is one of this deck's biggest weaknesses, and there are a lot of abundance of hand traps this format, so dealing with those is very important, and these 5 cards are perfect for that. So that is pretty cool for those. And then for the last 3 cards, we have more consistency card, Upstart Goblin for 39 card deck, Monster Reborn, and 1 for 1. I don't know why I say Upstart Goblin, but I meant Upstart Goblin. Like I said, 39 card deck. There was a thought for me to also run Into the Void instead of one of the cards, but the more and more I played with the deck, the more and more I realized why I don't really like Into the Void, because discard your entire hand, which might sound not really that important or matter, but for follow-up plays, you do need your hand sometimes, so Into the Void just didn't make any sense. Monster Reborn is just Monster Reborn, you sometimes need to revive something back, it's actually pretty important, and then 1 for 1 into get something specifically from your deck. But that does it for your main deck. Now we'll move on into the extra deck. And for the extra deck, we have the 1 copy of Big Genghis, the 2 copies of Small Genghis, and then the 1 copy of Millennium Eyes Restrict. for your fusion monsters. This is for your instant fusion target. Like I said, it's supposed to help you deal with hand traps. It's also a very, very good card to basically even link off. It's also a body after you use his effect. Then you link it off, summon it back with Cross Sheep, and his effect is a hard once and a soft once per turn, because the start of the effect is once per turn. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you get to basically take it and equip to it, and then negate the effect of those. So basically you will be able to use the effect twice, which is very, very cool. So you're able to sometimes eat 2 hand traps for the price of 1, because you summon this with Cross Sheep back, because you want additional protection depending on your hand. Not always you're going to do that, but it's really cool that this interaction exists. Genghis, 2 copies is pretty good. Most of the time in your combos you use 1, but the second one is just good for follow-up, and High King Genghis is just High King Genghis is another part of your combo. And one thing I forgot to mention, of course, before we'll just move into the rest of the extra deck, is that this effect only trigger for the special summon only when special summoned a DD monster. So do keep that in mind, that you have most of the time to activate the effect of Sorrow Slime for the special summoning, because you do need to special summon for him to trigger the effect. I've seen some people are actually kind of confused by that from few previous deck profiles that I did about this, that they asked me why do I not normal summon the Lamia and, Copernicus. This effect only trigger on special summon. That's why I'm using the effect of Sorrow Slime all the time and not saving it for later. But that does it for the fusions. Now we'll move on into the synchros. And for the synchros, I ran 7. 1 Formula Synchron, 1 Gus King Alexander, 1 Siegfried, 1 Crystal Wing, 1 Savage, 1 Shen Shen, and 1 copy of Satellite Warrior. These are the 7 synchro monsters that I decided to go up with, and these are all excellent for what they want to do. Formula Synchron and Satellite Warriors are supposed to be with your Crystal and Haki Fibrax engine. You summon this one, you summon this during the opponent's turn, and then you pop 2 to 3 cards. 1 to 3 cards, depending, of course, on your hand and whatever you play. Shen Shen is a new addition that I kind of came up with recently, that I kind of realized that sometimes I'm able to get to a level 8 to my side of the field, and then this will just take one of, a Lamia with, for example, a big Genghis, and then you summon a Shen Shen, and it's a free monster that is a Floodgate. It's a Microcosmos on legs, which is really, really good. Then you have Savage, and Crystal Wing, and Siegfried, which are just your negates for level 8s, which are more easier to summon. And then Alexander is just part of your combo. Again, pretty self-explanatory for those. And then for the last 4 monsters, these are Link monsters, Cross Sheep, Crystal and Haki Fibrax, and, Gilgamesh are pretty much known ones that you normally want to run. But the additional one that I run is Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, because sometimes in some combos, I do just need to get monsters off the field, and I have nothing to do to extend. So being able to just get rid of the monsters and still getting a pretty decent Link 4 monster that negates 2 to 4 times is very, very good. So Bow of the Goddess just proved to be very, very useful. Cross Sheep is pretty important for your combos. You're getting most of the time its effect with the effect of Big Genghis to summon it to its zone, and then you're able to, get his effect. One thing also to mention is that even if you just have this in the zone and you summon Genghis and you didn't trigger his effect, the moment that you summon a monster to its other zone, its effect to still special summon a level 4 lower will still activate, because it's activate in a sequence the moment that you special summon a monster to its zone, as long as you have one of the, the effects that it can activate, monster in the other zone. So if you have, for example, let's say a big Genghis and then you summon a Crystal Wing to the other zone, then it will activate both of the effects. Even though that people think that you need to summon, the fusion monster immediately. It doesn't have to happen like that. It just happens in sequence, so it's really important to remember that. Crystal and Haki Fibrax, unfortunately, expensive, but it's important. And Gilgamesh is useful for some of your combos. Very, very cool to mention that this is not as important as it used to be for everything, so you don't really need to depend on Apocalypse that much, which you're going to see in the combo section when we'll get to it. But that's pretty much does it for the Link monsters and does it for the deck profile as a whole. Honestly, I'm having a lot of fun and a lot of blast with this deck. And every single time I update it, it's just really, really fun. It's one of my favorite decks of all time. I don't think it's my top favorite one. There is one particular one that I like more, which is Vendred. This is my second favorite one. And yeah, for a very, very good reason. It's a very, very fun deck, and I'm hoping we'll get more support in the future. But for now, I hope you understand how the deck functions and why do I choose some certain cards. But that's pretty much does it for that. Now let's move on into the combo section. Welcome to the combo section. And in the combo section, I'm going to share with you 5 DDD combos that I think are very important for you to know to playing this list. Now we're going to start things with more known combos and then kick it up a notch with different sequences and different combination of cards to essentially get you familiar with different things that you can do in the deck. And the first combo is going to be, you know, a standard combo, and it's going to require you to have Lamia, Cereal Slime, and Necro Slime. This is kind of like the most known combo, this and the other one, but there are some particular sequences that are pretty much need to know if you don't know the deck, or you specifically just kind of find yourself a little bit, you know, don't really understand, because there are some particular things that need to happen in a very, very specific order. So now let's get started with the combo. So to start things off with a combo, you're going to use these two by using Cereal Slime effect to use itself and another DD monster in your hand and fusion summon directly from your extra deck the Genghis. Now we're going to use the effect of Cereal Slime in the graveyard to banish itself and summon the Lamia directly from your hand. Now you have to do this specifically and not normal summon Lamia, because Genghis, as I mentioned in the extra deck section, basically cannot activate his effect unless the DD monster is special summon itself. So if you normal summon the Lamia, the effect will not trigger. But now that you special summon the Lamia, the effect of Genghis will trigger and give you the Necro Slime. Then you're going to take these two and Synchro Summon into Alexander, and then take these two and Link Summon into a Cross Sheep. Now we're going to use the effect of Necro Slime Engrave, banish it, and the copy of Genghis to fusion summon into the High King Genghis into one of Cross Sheep zones to get its effect. So we're going to summon it to one of the zones and then trigger Cross Sheep effect, summon the Lamia, then trigger this effect to summon back the Genghis. Or not Genghis, the Alexander. Then we're going to take Cross Sheep and Lamia, one tuner and one non-tuner, and we're going to Link Summon the Crystron Haki Fibrax. Crystron Haki Fibrax effect will give us the Ghost directly from our deck, and that will trigger Alexander effect to summon a level 4 lower DD monster, and that will be Lamia. Then we're going to take Alexander and Lamia, Synchro Summon into a Crystal Wing, and then we're going to take Ghost and High Flame King Genghis to Link Summon into our Gilgamesh. Chainlink 1, Gilgamesh. Chainlink 2, Ghost. Ghost will send another copy of Lamia from our deck to the graveyard, and then Gilgamesh will put for 2 of our scales the Ragnarok and the, what is his name again? Apocalypse. Now, what we're going to do is that we're going to use Apocalypse effect first to special summon itself by banishing 2 DD monsters or stuff like that from your graveyard, or Dark Contracts, I believe. So you want to specifically banish as one of your materials for the banish, or should I say, like the effect to banish. You have to banish one of them, has to be the Ghost, and the other one can be whatever you want to, and most of the time what I like to do is banishing the High Genghis. You banish these 2, and you summon it directly from your Pendulum Zone. Now, you could technically activate the effect of Ragnarok because this monster was special summoned, but you don't want to do that because otherwise you're going to not get the monsters that you actually want to use for the effect of this. So instead of it, we're going to use the effect of Ghost only and return the normal Genghis back to our graveyard. Now we're going to use one of the effects of our Lamias to send the Gilgamesh to our graveyard. It doesn't really matter which of the Lamias. And then that will trigger finally the effect of Ragnarok to summon from our graveyard the normal Genghis. Then take these 2 and Synchro Summon into a Siegfried directly from our extra deck and ending our turn and passing the turn into our opponent. So what would we end up with? Now, oh, of course, and this gets banished, which I forgot. But what would you end up with? So now we ended up with another card in scale, which is pretty cool. We ended up with a Siegfried and a Crystal Wing, which are interruptions, but on top of that, a Crystron Haki Fibrax during the opponent's turn will be able to turn itself into a Formula Synchron, not only giving us an additional card if, of course, we will not miss timing, obviously, but we'll also be able to use this effect to either provide us the Synchro Summon of Satellite Warrior with one of the level 8s to give us 3 pops, up to 3 pops, or we'll be able to use the level 6 and this to make a Savage Dragon, which will be another interruption, which is a pretty good end board overall. 3 interruptions for 3 cards. But that does it for combo number 1. Let's move on into combo number 2. So, combo number 2. Combo number 2 is going to follow as the same principles for combo number 1. However, instead of one of our free cards, we're going to open up as the third one, it doesn't really matter one which, is going to be a Savant Kepler instead of, for example, a Sorrow Slime, a Lamia, or a Necro Slime. For this particular situation, I choose a Sorrow Slime because it's the least searchable one, but it doesn't really matter. And the entire principle for this combo is that this is going to just provide us another body to do things a little bit more interesting and go into different options of end boards. So that is kind of cool. But now let's get started with the combo itself. So to start things off, we're going to normal summon the Savant Kepler from our hand and use the effect to grab the gate, activate gate, and grab our final missing piece, which is Sorrow Slime, and then do the normal thing of using these two to fusion summon into a Genghis, and then banish the Sorrow Slime, summon the Lamia, use the effect of Genghis, summon the Necro Slime, standard, and then you're going to use these two to synchro summon into Alexander. Now, in this particular situation, we're instead of using this and this to make the, the cross sheep, we're actually going to use these two to synchro should I say link the cross sheep. I don't know why I said synchro. Then you're going to cross sheep, and then we're going to use the effect of Necro Slime in the grave, banish it, and banish the Genghis to summon the High Genghis, and not trigger the effect of cross sheep yet. And then we're going to actually trigger the effect of Alexander now, and special summon the Lamia. Then synchro summon these two, and summon a Crystal Wing. And now we can trigger the effect of Cross Sheep, which will work in a sequence, because Cross Sheep effect can work whenever you special summon a monster to his zone, as long as you have one of the monsters that specifies on his effect as one of its other zones. So it doesn't really matter which one you summon, it just, as long as you have one of the, of his effects that can activate in a sequence, that one will work. Now, one thing I would mention is that even if you summon here, for example, a Lamia, this will still work. If you summon here a Lamia, you'll still get the synchro effect. So, for anybody who's just asking, this is legal, I checked it a million times, and it's okay. So now what's going to happen is that you're going to use Cross Sheep effect to summon the Lamia, and that will trigger this effect to summon back the Alexander. We're then going to take, as before, the Lamia plus Cross Sheep, and we're going to link into Crystal and Hacky Fibrex. And Crystal and Hacky Fibrex is actually going to give us directly from our deck the Lamia this time. Because what I'm going to do in the end of this board is take these two, synchro summon into a Savage Dragon, and equip to it whatever, or should I say, this thing to your side of the field, like, give it the 2 counters and equip this. And then we're going to use Lamia's effect, send the Dark Contract with the gate, special summon itself, and then synchro summon these two, this grave, this banish, and this is a 9, and we summon a Shenshin. And that is going to be our end board, instead of going into the Gilgamesh. Why is that sometimes even better? Well, while the Gilgamesh give you the additional, third interruption, here you still get the third interruption, but on top of that, you're getting a card that pretty much going to kill a lot of grave decks that are depending on this. Eldritch, for example, Drytron even sometimes need the graveyard, they need a graveyard for some particular things. Even Tri-Brigade, other decks that kind of need the graveyard, this kind of kills them, and it's a cool way to just basically kind of shut them down. And this is also a recovery card, which is not a recovery card, but a card that recurs every single turn, as long as you have 2 monsters with the same types and attributes, I believe. So it's not really that hard to do. And then during the opponent's turn, obviously you summon this, and you summon this. Now, in this particular situation, they will banish themselves, so I do recommend to take one of these that you don't really care about banishing. I, most of the time, actually will banish the Crystal Wing, specifically, but it doesn't really matter for the situation. But the point is, you're still going to get the 1 pop with the Satellite, even though you're not going to get the 3, because, Shenshin will make cards banish. So it's still very important to remember, but it's still a very, very good combo. But now let's move on into combo number 3. So, For combo number 3, we're going to use once again the Kepler, but the 2 supporting cards are going to be different, and in this particular combo we're going to use 1 Ragnarok and 1 Copernicus for this particular combo. Now in this particular combo I'm going to say right now, zone placement is very important, so do pay attention when you're playing this combo. But now, let's jump right into it. So to start things off, in order to not forget, activate Ragnarok in scale, and then normal summon Kepler into one of those 2 zones. Not summoning it into any of these 3, depending of course on your extra monster zone that you want to choose, but I recommend to always, just for practice, summon it to one of those 2 zones. We're going to normal summon the Kepler and use its normal effect to search the gate, activate gate, and as always, search the Cyril slime, and then use these 2, fusion summon the Genghis into one of those 3 zones. Very, very important to remember. Ragnarok effect will trigger to summon the Copernicus from your graveyard, and then Cyril slime will be summoned by the effect of Genghis, and you are going to summon the Lamia by the effect of Copernicus from your graveyard to your graveyard. Now, one thing I would mention also here is that this effect does target, as I mentioned in the extract section, or even if I didn't. Basically, because of this target, it doesn't really matter which one of these is first, because it's always going to summon the Cyril slime because the Lamia is not in the graveyard. So it is important to mention that. So even if this is a chain link 1, it will not be able to summon the Lamia. I kind of just seen that, and it's kind of like a little bit of an annoying thing about DDDs, but it is what it is. Now, what we're going to do is that we're going to take these 2 specifically to link summon with these 2. This goes to the extract, this goes to the graveyard, into the cross sheep. And now, we're going to use the effect of Lamia Engrave to send this to your graveyard and special summon it to the other zone of cross sheep. And as I mentioned before, when you special summon a monster into the zone of cross sheep, it's going to activate its effect depending on the sequence of the monsters that have linked to it, or should I say, like, you know, in its zones. So because we only have a fusion, we're only going to special summon this directly from our graveyard. Now, what's going to happen is that we're going to take these 2 specifically. This goes to the graveyard, this gets banished, and we're going to summon the Crystron Haki Firebrax here. And then Crystron Haki Firebrax effect will summon from your deck the 2nd copy of Lamia. Now, because unfortunately we don't really have the ability to extend even more with Gilgamesh, because we already have a card in our scale, we're actually going to do something different. We're going to take these 2, link summon into Appaloosa Both the Goddess, and give it 2 counters, and then we're going to use these 3, all of them. This goes to the extract, these 2 are going to the graveyard, and we're going to summon a Savage Dragon directly from our extra deck, and as well giving it 2 counters to, you know, for its own negates. Yes, I know it's a different D&D die that I have right now handy to me. But that's pretty much going to be the end board for this one. Unfortunately, not the best end board in the world, because sometimes you have to make some sacrifices. But this is still a pretty decent end board. You still have the 2 negates, Appaloosa, and Savage Dragon, which is free interruptions. And of course, I forgot, of course, to equip for the Savage for his own effect. But, you know, the normal thing with Savage, you got the 2 interruptions, which one of them you can use during your opponent's turn, and one during your turn. And it's still a pretty decent board. 3 interruptions for 3 cards. Unfortunately, you don't really have the follow-up, you know, with Crystron Haki Firebrax and all that stuff. But sometimes you need to make sacrifices. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 3. Let's move on to combo number 4. So, for combo number 4, we're going to once again highlight Ragnarok, and we're going to use, once again as before, 1 Ragnarok, 1 Kepler, but our 3rd card is going to be a Lamia. And this is actually pretty important for this combo, because in this particular combo, because of Lamia being instead of Copernicus, we're actually be able to use Ragnarok effect both in the scale and in the monster zone. So it's really, really cool, and it's just show you how much good a Ragnarok is as a card. But now let's get started with it. So to start things off, as usual, we're going to normal summon the Kepler, use his effect to grab the gate, activate gate, and grab, as always, the Cyril slime. Now in this particular combo, don't activate Ragnarok in scale. We're not going to do that, because we don't really need to. We're then going to use these 2 in our hand, specifically these 2, to fusion summon your Genghis. And then we're going to use the effect of, Lamia already. Send this to the graveyard, special summon the Lamia, and then use this effect to special summon the Cyril slime immediately. Then we're going to take these two specifically. This get banished, this get back to the graveyard, and we summon Crystron Hakifibrax. Crystron Hakifibrax will summon another copy of Lamia from our deck. Ooh, second copies of Lamia again. And then we're going to use these two to Synchro Summon into an Alexander. Now finally, we'll be able to use the effect of our Zero Slime Engrave, banish it, summon our Ragnarok from our hand, and then Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, it doesn't really matter, but we're going to get the Genghis back and the Lamia back from our graveyard. Then we'll take La Lamia and Alexander, and we Synchro Summon into a Crystal Wing, and then we have to take specifically the Kepler and the Genghis for this particular one, unfortunately, because otherwise we'll not have enough materials in the graveyard for the effect of, what it called, forgot his name, Apocalypse. We'll not have enough materials in the graveyard for Apocalypse to use his effect, but we have to do right this like that to summon the Gilgamesh, and then we'll put these two in the scale as usual. Then we're going to use the effect of Apocalypse, as I mentioned before, and like I said, we only have these three in the graveyard, so in order to get the Lamia, we have to use these two, unfortunately. Summon the Apocalypse, and then trigger this card effect, summon the Lamia, and then this goes to the extra deck, this goes to the graveyard, and we're going to summon from our extra deck the Siegfried to our, be our last monster, and then during the opponent's turn, we have the access with Formula Synchron and Satellite Warrior. Now, one thing to mention, unfortunately, that Ragnarok is just going to be a big 3k booty that does absolutely nothing, because it can't be used for a Synchro with Satellite, because you have to have a Synchro monster with it. So, unfortunately, you can't really use this card, but it's still a big booty that you're able to summon. It's still an additional monster that could be useful next turn, which is pretty cool. And you still have the 3 interruptions with the Crystal Wing with his monster interruption. This is a spell and trap interruption. And this, with the 3 pops up to basically 2 pops right now, because you banished the Alexander because of, you had to. So it's up to 2 pops, and it's still very, very decent. But that's it for combo number 4. Let's move on into the final combo, which is combo number 5. Alright, so for the final combo, we're actually going to do a non-Zero Slime combo. That basically just either not requiring you to search Zero Slime specifically, or the cards in your hand doesn't really make any sense to get a Zero Slime to your hand, and unfortunately that's how that goes. So for this particular combo, you need Savant Kepler, Necro Slime, and the final card is actually going to be Dark Contract Negate, in order to show you that sometimes, Dark Contract with the Swamp King is actually a pretty useful card. So now let's get started with the combo. So to start things off, we're going to normal summon the Kepler, and because we already have the Gate, before I mentioned, we're going to grab Swamp King, and now we're going to activate Gate, grab to our hand the Lamia, and then activate Swamp King, and use these 2 cards in our hand to fusion summon into a Genghis. Next, instead of using the effect of Lamia immediately, we're actually going to use these 2 to link summon into Crossship, and then we're going to use the effect of, Necro Slime in the graveyard, banish it, and banish the Genghis, and of course this, I forgot, goes to the extra deck. You're going to fusion summon your big Genghis into one of the zone's Cross-Sheep points to. Cross-Sheep effect will trigger, you summon the Lamia, and then you take Lamia plus Cross-Sheep, and you link summon into Crystron Hakifibrax. Hakifibrax effect will summon Ghost, and then Big Genghis effect will trigger to summon the Lamia from your graveyard. Now in this particular situation, you can technically go into the Gilgamesh and get the Siegfried negate and everything, but I don't think that's kind of makes sense. I'd rather do something else that's a little bit more meaningful. So instead of that, we're going to take all of these 3 cards, and we're going to link them all 3 off into a 3 negate Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, and then we're going to use the effect of Ghost Engrave, send another copy of Lamia in the graveyard, use Lamia effect engrave one of them, send the Swamp King, special summon the Lamia, and then use Lamia plus Genghis, that's equal 9, and you already know where that's leading to. We're going to summon, that's right, a Shen to support our Appaloosa, and that is going to be our end board. And this is still a very, very strong end board because we are able to get 3 Interruption Appaloosa plus a Shenshin which disrupt graveyards, which is really, really cool. And we also have the Dark Contract for additional, searching during the next turn if it stays on the field. So we got an additional, recurability in the next turn, or should I say, searchability in the next turn, which is pretty cool. So that does it for combo number 5, and does it for the entire combo section. And now let's move on into the next deck choices. Alright, so for the next deck choices for the, next video, we have 4 options, as always. And the 4 options that we have are the 3 coming back options from last week, which are going to be Abyss Actors, Spirals, and I forgot the last one, I think it's Shadows, right? Shadows was the last one. And the 4th option I'm going to throw in is going to be, once again, Geist. If you want me to do Geist, that will be the 4th option for you to choose from. So these are the 4 options. Again, I'm going to read them as such. Shadow, Spirals, Abyss Actors, and Geist as the new 4th option. But that's pretty much does it for the video. It's a very long one and a very cool one that I've been working for a little bit of a while, and I hope you enjoy it quite a bit because it's a really, really cool deck that I enjoy. DDDs, I think it's a very, very interesting deck, and with the right additional support it can be very fun and very strong. But for now, that's what we have, so we have to deal with it. But that's pretty much it for the video. So if you enjoyed, I'm going to remind you again that you can like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.